If you've ever lived beside someone for decades, shared mornings, routines, a familiar breath beside you at dawn, quiet glances across a kitchen table that said more than words ever could, and then one day they were simply gone. This story is for you. It's not about the moment they left. It rarely is. The heart never breaks on a schedule. It's about what came after. The silence that wasn't really silent. The air that felt heavier. The rooms that echoed with habits you couldn't let go of. The grief doesn't move in like a storm. Not loudly, not all at once. It arrives slowly. It shows up in empty slippers by the bed, in a chair that no one sits in anymore, in the half of the blanket that stays perfectly smooth because it's never touched. Before we begin, I want to ask you something. Have you ever lost someone who was your constant? Not just a person, but a presence? The kind of soul who became the shape of your days? If so, you're welcome to share their name in the comments. This channel is a place where love continues to live, and your words might bring someone else comfort they didn't know they needed. Her name is Judith. She's 78 now, though she rarely mentions her age. Because when you've lived through decades, seen both love and loss ripen and fade like the seasons, numbers start to lose their weight. She still makes 2 cups of tea every morning, one for herself and one for the man who isn't there anymore. His name was Frank. They were married for 52 years. He passed away just 2 weeks before their 53rd anniversary. A date Judith doesn't mark with sorrow, but with quiet, like lighting a candle that no one else sees. They met in 1969, in a library. He was returning a book on gardening. She was browsing poetry. He asked her, without pretense, "What's your favorite line in that one?" She looked up, surprised, then softly replied, "You and I, it's as though we've been handed the same song to hum." Frank smiled, and never stopped humming along. They built a life together, not with grand gestures, but with daily tenderness. A life of shared socks in the laundry, unfinished conversations in the car, his laugh filling the bathroom mirror with steam. And now, Judith's home is still filled with him, just in different ways. Judith doesn't cry much. People think grief always comes in floods, but sometimes it's dust. So fine you breathe it in without realizing until your chest feels heavy. She says the sadness doesn't always announce itself. It slips into the quiet moments, when the kettle whistles too long, or when a song plays on the radio and no one hums along. The house is quiet now. Too quiet, but not empty. There's still a coat hanging by the door that smells like his aftershave. A pair of reading glasses resting on top of a book he never finished. There's no voice humming in the bathroom. No footsteps down the hall that once told her he was up before she even opened her eyes. No one asking, "Did you take your pills this morning?" Judith talks to him. Not in a strange way, but in the way you speak to someone who never really left. Sometimes out loud, sometimes just in her head. But he's there, in the quiet flick of a lamp turning off, in the way the teacup sits exactly where he left it, in the soft ways love stays behind and lives inside the ordinary. The hardest part, she says, isn't the big days, not the anniversaries, where people send flowers and speak gently with tilted heads. Not the holidays, where everyone tiptoes around her grief like it's glass that might shatter. Not even the lonely dinners, though those still ache. No. The hardest part is the small, unremarkable moments, the ones no one prepares you for. Like reaching for 2 towels instead of 1. Starting a sentence with "we" before remembering it's just me now. Or laughing at something on TV, instinctively turning to share it, and finding only silence. That's the part no one tells you. Grief doesn't scream. It whispers. It lives in muscle memory, in gestures you haven't unlearned yet. Judith doesn't ask for sympathy. She doesn't wear her grief like a badge. She's strong. She's endured. But some mornings, she wakes up and forgets. Just for a second, in that soft, sleepy haze. She reaches across the bed, expecting warmth. A familiar breath. A simple "good morning." And then she remembers. If you've ever experienced a loss like this, you already know. Grief doesn't leave. It doesn't fade like ink. It settles, changes shape, learns how to hide in everyday things. Sometimes it softens, letting you laugh without guilt, letting you move through your day without flinching. And then suddenly, in the middle of folding laundry or hearing a certain phrase, it returns. Not to destroy you, but to remind you that love was here, that it still is. Let me ask you something. Is there something you still do because it reminds you of someone you've lost? A habit, a small ritual, a flavor, a scent, a place you can't quite let go of because in that moment they feel near again? If so, you're not alone. And if it feels right, you're welcome to share it in the comments. Here, your memories are safe. And sometimes, the smallest remembrance can carry the greatest comfort to someone else. Because love doesn't need to be loud to be heard. Judith still makes that second cup of tea. Every morning. Same kettle, same mug, same soft clink of the teaspoon against porcelain. She places it at the table, right where Frank used to sit. Not because she expects him to walk in. She knows he won't. But because love leaves behind shapes that routine remembers, and in some quiet corner of the soul, honoring those shapes feels like prayer. She doesn't speak much about his death. She doesn't need to. Her grief doesn't demand attention. It simply exists, like background music you learn to live with. But she speaks often of his life, about how he used to whistle without realizing, how he always read the newspaper backwards, starting with the comics before the headlines, and how, even in sleep, his hand always found hers. As if love had muscle memory, too. Grief is not just sadness. It's love with nowhere to go. It's every "I love you" left unsaid. Every quiet moment you assumed you'd have again. It's a conversation paused, but never resumed. A favorite meal no longer cooked. A chair that stays tucked in. But grief is also evidence, proof that something real was here, something beautiful, something that mattered deeply. And in that sense, grief becomes sacred. Not something to run from, but something to carry with tenderness. Because what a gift to have loved so deeply that your absence now echoes in another person's life. And what a testament to wake up each day still finding reasons to go on, to honor their memory, not with constant sorrow, but with quiet continuation. So if you've lost someone who was always there, not just in presence, but in rhythm, in the way your day flowed, in the pauses between sentences, in the spaces you didn't even realize they filled, then please hear this. You're not alone in that silence. Not everyone will understand it. Not everyone can sit with the kind of grief that doesn't cry out loud. But here, you don't have to explain it here. Your story is welcome. And even if you never type a word, your presence here is felt. This community was created for that. For you. For the love you carry, and the stories that still live within you. If this story spoke to something inside you, a memory, a name, a moment you thought no one else would understand, we hope you'll subscribe. Because every night we share stories that were almost never told, but needed to be. And we'd be honored if you came to sit with us again tomorrow night.